Hi guys, good evening and welcome back once again to the EdWord. I'm your host Eddie, and in tonight's episode I will be discussing what I thought of the latest and greatest installments of Star Trek that I've seen in a very long time. Excuse me. The newest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, episode 2 of season 2, dropped today on Paramount Plus. I just got done watching it. Wow. Did it get to me? I mean, I found myself choking up during parts of this episode, and it was just so well done on so many levels. Now, before I get into all that, of course, please be warned, this is a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen the latest episode of Strange New Worlds, which is episode 2 of season 2, you do not want to keep watching or listening, as I will be going into spoilers, plot details, character stuff, all that jazz. That being said, you have been warned. Okay, so let's get right back to it. So, I really love it when Star Trek, and sadly, in today's world, there's a lot to be said and done regarding fixing social issues and practices that may not be legally wrong, but morally wrong. Such as discriminatory practices. And I feel like, discriminating against large amounts of marginalized people. And I feel like that was the social commentary they were making in this episode. In this case, number one, Una, was basically arrested for not actually carrying out a criminal act, but the criminal act was simply being who she was. So at the end of season 1, she's arrested by Starfleet security because she lied on her Starfleet application about being genetically modified. She said she wasn't when she actually was, because Illyrians are apparently a genetically modified race, or they practiced in genetics. And I guess they're considered outcasts, and they're not even in the Federation or part of the Federation. It's more like they're neighbors or something like that. And the Federation, because of its experiences with the eugenics laws, which was those genetic wars, and that's when Kong and his people were around, that's because they have laws against genetic engineering and tampering and whatnot. And I guess it's why they don't allow genetically modified beings to serve in Starfleet or be members of the Federation, which is ironic considering how supposedly enlightened and progressive the Federation is with its acceptance of all beings of all life forms, and yet they have a discriminatory practice of not allowing genetically modified individuals like Una to even serve in Starfleet, or for beings or entire races, for that matter, being members of the Federation because they're genetically modified. Seems very hypocritical and ass backwards of the Federation and of Starfleet, doesn't it? And I love how her friend, the civil rights lawyer, who did an amazing job in this episode. I don't know that actress's name, but she was phenomenal in this episode. Her performance basically carried this entire episode, and she did a fantastic job. I mean, she brought me close to the brink of tears a few times because of how passionate and empowered and strongly she spoke about all the issues they addressed, about how wrong it is for Starfleet to regard and treat genetically modified people the way it is. And in this case, genetically modified people can apply to any marginalized group in society nowadays. It can range from people of color to gay people to transgender people, people who are non-binary, people like that. And it could cover so many ongoing, sadly, modern day controversies and issues that society continues to face and fight back against, or sometimes just kind of give in and allow it to happen when we shouldn't allow it to happen. And that's what this episode does. That's what makes Star Trek Star Trek. It can take something that is relevant and happening in society nowadays and express it in a form of entertainment. It's still entertaining, but the entertainment doesn't devalue the importance of the message or the moral of the story, which in this case was about how wrong it was for Una to be on trial in the first place when she technically didn't do anything wrong. Okay, yeah, lying on a Starfleet application, yeah, that's a problem. But it's nothing worth going to jail for 20 years over for. You know, they're trying to make an example out of her. And thankfully, her lawyer figured out who really leaked her identity to Starfleet when it turned out to be Una all along, and then used her testimony to convince Starfleet, oh, this is just a mere technicality. She was escaping persecution, requesting asylum. Pike's in the clear because he took it into consideration and thus granted her asylum. So it was a nice legal save, a nice legal loophole. You know, this whole episode felt like a really gripping, powerful episode of like Law and Order Special Victims Unit almost. It was a great legal sci-fi drama that didn't require a bunch of action or a bunch of guns or aliens and people shooting at each other. This was more of an action with dialogue, with exciting dialogue that kept you hooked, engaged, wondering what was going to happen next, what was going to be said or spoken next, who was going to say what and why. You know, that's good television right there. This episode was excellent television. So, man, and then I found myself tearing up at parts of, you know, her lawyer's speech about, you know, how something may be legal but doesn't make it morally sound or correct, pointing out, you know, slavery, apartheid were all once considered legal, even though they were morally wrong, so wrong on so many levels. And that, you know, even in today's society, you know, trying to ban books, trying to declare war on drag and to go after drag queens, going after the gay community. You know, these things are wrong. We shouldn't be doing these things because it's just wrong. We're supposed to be there for each other, to love one another. And, you know, if you don't love someone, at least tolerate them. You don't have to be their best friend, but tolerate them. And I feel like this episode was spreading that message exactly. And it could not have come in a more timely way, I think. So, I don't know. I don't want to keep going off or nothing. But overall, I loved this episode. And, you know, it really moved me on a number of levels, as I hope it moved all of you too. And I'm really, really pleased with how this episode turned out. And now things have relatively gotten back to normal for the crew. Una's in the clear. She can return to her duties as number one. And they quickly wrapped up the little storyline they introduced at the end of season 1, which was the beginning of her troubles with Starfleet when she was arrested. And now things can get back to normal for the most part, by which I mean they can now have adventures every week in this show, while the looming threat of the Gorn still remains out there. But man, what an episode this was. Oh God. And then on top of all of the incredible dramatic legal stuff, we had this hysterical scene in the very beginning when we saw the doctor and I can't remember her character's name, but Melissa Navia's character are watching Spock and the other Vulcan talk, and she's doing lip reading or something like that, and then Spock approaches them and apologizes for the outburst they just witnessed, which was apparently an emotional outburst that the Vulcans regard, that looked like just regular talking to humans, but to the Vulcans, they were having a heated exchange. And it was hysterical. Oh God, it was funny when he said, "I apologize for the outburst you just witnessed." I was dying. I thought that was the funniest shit I had ever heard. So that was great. And then to top it all off with everything else that really plucked at the heartstrings, I mean, wow, well done, Star Trek. Oh, that was fantastic. I cannot emphasize enough how great this episode was. I encourage you all to watch it, even if you don't watch the series. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. What did you think of it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings on it. Thank you so much for watching. Star Trek Strange New Worlds drops new episodes every Thursday on Paramount Plus. You check them out. They're pretty damn great. Have a wonderful rest of your night, everyone. Thanks for watching. And, of course, until next time, live long and prosper.